Alright, so the 1528 series was released around last year and has received rave reviews from just about everybody. I'm a little bit late to the party, but I am excited to review these because just last year I was reviewing the 1723S speaker package. It was my first go around with Arendal sound and I fell in love with them. This new one is Arendal's top end speaker range, and all of the speakers within this lineup are far too big for my space, save for these ones, the Slim 8. These are designed to be wall mounted, and you can use them in home theater, in stereo, as surrounds, as a center, on your desk, they say. Oh my god, I can't imagine using these on my desk. They retail for $4,100 US, and they're available in Basalt and Polar White. And of course, if you wouldn't mind just liking this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications and whatnot. It helped me out a ton, helped me get more awesome products like this in for review. Thanks so much. Like any speaker from Arendal, these are absolutely massive. And while these are considered slim speakers, they're slim in relation to the rest of their lineup. You'll notice it's almost as deep as a fairly small bookshelf speaker. Here it is stacked with the totem loons on top, and you get an idea of how large the speaker is. Now, if I was to wall mount this speaker, I wouldn't be wall mounting this speaker. I would hire someone handy to wall mount this speaker, as it's fairly heavy. And even when I hang photos or paintings, there's usually a ton of holes behind the painting of where I screwed up, so a bit of care would need to go into wall mounting these things. And now, as I just mentioned, I'm going to be using these in a 2-channel configuration, and while I do use them as fronts when watching movies, I'm not going to be talking about them in multi-channel just because I don't have any of the matching speakers. And I imagine with these as fronts, with the matching center, and some as rears or even as surrounds, it would make for an amazing setup if you had the space for it. In my former home, I had a really large basement, and I feel like that would have been a perfect setup or space to house a package like this. But in this space, there's no way that would work at all. But this is how I'm living with them, set up on either side of my media unit, about 8 feet apart, and this time I push them as close to the wall as humanly possible. I do have an acoustic panel along the wall, along with some bass traps, so I can't get the speakers flush against the wall. I also have them on stands because in a condo, who knows what's in those walls? It could be metal studs or something, and I've had trouble putting stuff into the walls, like those acoustic panels are hanging on by a thread. Powering the system is one of 2 integrateds, the Marantz Model 50, the Cambridge Evo 150, and for the sub I use the 12-inch dolly that I still have in-house. My room is about 12 feet wide by 10 feet deep, and it's open on one side, and that's where the kitchen is. For streaming music onto the Model 50, I'm using the CXN V2, while the Evo 150 has everything built in. Well, they're pretty cool looking. Arendal totally nailed that modern industrial design that I can only assume they were going for with these speakers. It doesn't look like they were trying to make speakers that pull cues from furniture. These look to feel right at home in a sci-fi movie while also looking pretty classy. And it's one of those few times that I wish I had those all-white Scandinavian walls and an ultra-minimal setup. I feel like these would stand out against that. These speakers are so gorgeous, but I feel like they are let down by my ultra-cheap speaker stands. I do wish I had some nicer speaker stands in-house, but these ones are black and they do disappear against my wall, so I guess that's a win. But as an aside, I do wish though that I did have shorter speaker stands. Because this speaker is so tall, it makes the tweeter sit above my ear height, which is not really that ideal. I do have desktop speaker stands from Kanto, but the top plate is really small, so I don't want to risk damaging these speakers and having them fall off that. So what I did do is I put them on my end tables that you see in video against the wall. I'm not going to show you the speakers on those in video because it looks atrocious, but that's how I got them a bit closer to my ear height, and I did find it sounded better when it was there. But this is a 3-way speaker. Up top, you get a 28mm lithium magnesium tweeter. This sits in a controlled directivity waveguide and is finished with an acoustic lens. In the middle, it's a 5-inch carbon graphene mid-range, and down low, it's an 8-inch aluminum bass driver. This is a long throw bass driver that has a prism structure for stiffness, and it has inverted surrounds. The speakers come with a stylish rubber-backed magnetically attached steel grille. Aside from looking cool, the front is actually an acoustically time-aligned driver baffle. This front baffle is 85 millimeters thick, which, according to Google, is 3.34646 inches. The cabinet is made from multi-layered HDF with a satin paint finish. Around the back you get custom-designed rhodium-plated copper by-wire binding posts. They are by-wire and bi-amp compatible. Frequency response is 57 Hz to 20 kHz, and then they have F ratings. There's F3 at 55 Hz, F6 48 Hz, and F10 at 36 Hz. If you want to know more about those F ratings and all the other specs, I'll leave a link down below in the description. As usual, you can follow that to find out more about these speakers. I'm not going to even try to explain it because I don't quite fully understand it myself. The impedance is 4 ohms. The crossover frequencies are 420 Hz and 2800 Hz respectively. Sensitivity is 84 decibels. This measures 21 inches high by 11.4 inches wide by 7.8 inches deep, and it weighs 51 pounds. Recommended amp power is up to 400 watts, and they include a vessel wall mount, which I happily left in the box. Well, they're dead neutral. Like neutral. These are some of the flattest and most revealing speakers I've ever heard. And usually when a speaker is neutral, I find the highs to be a bit edgy or grating. I'm fairly sensitive to highs, but none of that happens here. Maybe it's the waveguide, maybe it's the dispersion, maybe it's all the build and everything they put into the speaker, but it's extremely easy to listen to. I absolutely adore this. And I can even hear differences between amplifiers. When I switch from the Marantz to the Evo 150, I could hear the difference in that sound. It was easier to discern the differences. A warmer, softer touch on the Marantz and more detail and clarity on the Evo 150. Neutral doesn't mean these aren't exciting. They don't all of a sudden make your music bland. It's just that you're hearing your music through the source as it's going to sound. True to the source, so to speak. And while being sealed, there's a surprising amount of low end coming out of these speakers. They are not, in my place, anemic in any way. Take, for example, playing the Paragon VIP from Gremlins. These just smashed out bass. It was kind of surprising, actually. I mean, full fat deep bass comes out of these speakers. So long as I'm sitting directly in front of them, I get that fast, tight, clean bass. Though if I wander over to my adjacent kitchen, the bass does dissipate a little bit in my room. I'm not sure what that is. That could just be the characteristics of my room, but it's no problem. I flip on the dolly and I'm golden. I chalk this up to how these perform in my room and the substandard treatment that I have in here. But when I engage room correction or room compensation on the Evo 150, it does seem to make up for it a touch. By the way, that new update on the Evo 150 that they did with Stream Magic is a complete game changer and makes that amp undeniable in my opinion. Playing Beach Drifter from Roughage Crew, it's one of my favorite tunes ever, and incidentally, it's the first track that I played for my daughter when I brought her home from the hospital. That sounds epic on these speakers. It is an old school drum and bass track, so it's less sharp than a lot of the new modern drum and bass tunes, and when it starts off with the synths and the piano and that bass line that kind of pumps in and slowly builds, it sounds absolutely massive and incredible on these speakers. If you're wondering about how these compare to the 1723 Monitor S, they are comparable. The Monitor S should go louder, I think, but there's no way I would know. I'd never turn these up to their fullest capacity because I don't want to get evicted. The Monitor S also has more oomph down low, and it did color the sound a bit. I'm speaking solely from memory here, but I don't really know though, to be honest. I'm kind of speaking out of turn here. It's been a few months since I've had the 1723 Monitor S's, and I think they are a ported box, so they do go lower, but I would say that these speakers, compared to my memory of those, have way more detail and definition. What these speakers were made for, though, was soul. Playing the Isley Brothers, Summer Breeze Parts 1 and 2, there's a bunch of other songs from them that I love, but this one in particular, I loved the instrument separation on these speakers. I love the way his voice sounds. I loved that guitar. It was clear, rich, really defined. It does feel like a very deep but also revealing speaker. Like if I want to get lost in some of the nuances in the song, or if I just want to focus on one instrument, I can. But if I want to just shake my head and just get lost in the vibe of a song, I can also do that too. The speaker was also an opportunity to rediscover ASC's album Time Heals All. It's an ambient album, so think massive scale and texture galore. With me just plopped on my couch writing this very script, I was completely lost in the sound and just folded my laptop. It was big, tall, and enveloping, and I thought I had the surrounds engaged. The top to bottom clarity and definition makes for a sense of wonderment, and I found myself just drifting off into a vibe listening to this album. I was completely lost in the sound. And now I totally get these speakers. I totally get who these are for. These are quite literally for everybody. They have so many different uses. I see these speakers working really well as DJ speakers on a DJ shelf. I can see these in a large office. These really can work anywhere, including on your desk. I gave that a shot, and oh my God, it makes for the best overkill desktop proposition I've ever come across. My desk is no longer in this space anymore. I started a new full-time job, and being stuck in a dark, windowless office is a total bummer. So I moved my desk to my bedroom, which makes for potentially the ugliest desk setup I've ever had. But I did put these speakers on said desk, and it is unbelievable. With these on my desk, powered by a couple of mystery components, what kind of life am I living right now? Taking Teams calls and watching content, it's the most ridiculous but most awesome setup I've ever had. I decided for a beat to actually just go ahead and make a beat on these speakers at my desk. It's actually the beat that's playing at the beginning of this video. And honestly, it's really easy to use these as desktop monitors. I could stand these to be a bit further away than I have them. I mean, they're only about a foot away from my ears when I'm working, but I'm completely enveloped in sound. I'm not getting the same dispersion characteristics out of the tweeter because I'm so close, but they do work really well. You can use them on your desk, but I think ideally, if your desk was about 9 feet deep, would probably be amazing. The folks at Arendal clearly knew what they were doing when they decided to sort me out with this speaker in particular. It's a wonderful speaker that fills my room with some of the most detailed, revealing sound that I've ever heard. And it's also a bit of a luxury speaker, so if you have the scratch for it, it's definitely worth a purchase, or at the very least, a listen. Thanks for watching.